Candidate cohort. We're pleased to have you here today. Our presentation today is by Ms. Janae Hurd, who will be evidencing her Teach Ag journey as she's prepared to complete her student teaching internship at Midwest High School with Mr. David Bittner. Following Ms. Hurd's presentation, we will accept questions from both our online audience and from the live audience. Ms. Hurd.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dr. Foster, and everyone, welcome. I am Ms. Hurd. Some of you know me. I'm Janae. And I'm here as a senior in agriculture and extension education to present to you my final presentation. But I need, because of the context of this presentation, I need some help from the audience. So I'm going to ask that each of you work alongside with me, and let's put on our student hats today. You're in my classroom, so go ahead and put on your student hats. That's good, Miranda. And we're going to accomplish 3 goals today. Today we're going to answer the question, who do I, Ms. Hurd, aspire to be as a teacher? And we're going to examine some experiential learning opportunities that I have engaged in that are going to help me become a better agriculture educator for you, my students. And then we'll wrap things up today by determining how prepared I am as a teacher to maximize my student teaching experience. So the first thing that we're going to do today is what I like to call chalk talk. And I have 4 words on the board, and I'm going to need you to get up out of your seats, take about 2 minutes, to use some of the chalk I have here on the table or what's along the board, and write down the first thing that comes to your mind when you see those words on the board. What questions are there? Go ahead. Board. Take about 30 more seconds to collect your thoughts and head back to your seat. Quietly. Well, it looks like we have some really great feedback on these boards, and we'll be referring back to these throughout the presentation. So I appreciate your feedback, and keep those 4 bang words in mind as we continue. So it's time to answer our first question. Do I have a volunteer to read the objective number 1 for me? Thank you, Stacia. Awesome. So in order for me to share with you a little bit about who I am as a teacher, I'm going to share with you my personal teaching philosophy. For those of you who picked up a handout, that's on page 2 or 3, I believe. And I've chosen to evidence my teaching philosophy in a visual way instead of a paragraph form, just so you can kind of picture some of the most important things to me out of my teaching philosophy. Up on the top, you can tell that community is very important to me in my classroom, whether that's within the community I establish with my students or the community outside our classroom walls. I also am very passionate about establishing and developing critical thinking in my students, bringing real-world applications, and developing a global perspective for my students. The 3-circle model is also a main point on my personal teaching philosophy infographic. I'm going to refer back to that, but some other things that I want to see in my classroom with my students is that I have the ability to make career connections for them and highlight their student success, because to me it's very important that they understand that what they're doing is awesome, and that they leave my classroom being financially literate and understand that there are a lot of connections between science, technology, engineering, and math in agriculture. If we continue on from my teaching philosophy into what my ideal program philosophy would look like, it's centered around the three-circle model, which is made up of three components: classroom instruction, FFA, and supervised agriculture experience, or SAE. I appreciate that all three of them together bring what I like to call the sweet spot of agriculture education. And there, with the contextual and inquiry-based learning that can happen in my classroom, and the leadership growth and success that's developed in my students through FFA, which is an intra-curricular organization, we can take all of that outside of the classroom, implement it in an experiential learning opportunity through an SAE. I hope that through platforms like the AET, I'll be able to maximize my student involvement in SAE in my model program, hopefully seeing 100% of students involved. There are 4 different SAEs that my students could have: exploratory, placement, entrepreneurship, and research. You can read a little bit about what an example would be in that particular field. And hopefully then my students will be able to take those skills and the content learned in my classroom and apply them directly here. In terms of the way that I will incorporate the FFA, that component of the three-circle model, I hope that the content I'm teaching in my classroom will be able to be directly connected to career development events, so that my students can compete on a local, state, or national level, applying what they're learning, and then taking those skills into the workplace. I love that the FFA gives me an opportunity to recognize my students for their success, whether that's in leadership, a career development event, or an SAE. I want to brag on my kids. And last but not least, FFA holds a strong tradition. It's been here since 1928, and I want my students to be able to recognize and appreciate the tradition of the FFA while acknowledging that there's still room for innovation there. In my model program, I would like to provide my students with as many career opportunities as possible. So that's why I have 5 select career pathways: agricultural engineering, animal science, plant science, environmental science, and general AF&R. These are some example courses that students could take if they choose that career pathway in my program, providing them a wide opportunity of coursework. It's very important in an agricultural classroom that a program is marketed well, because unlike a science or a math class, students are not required to take my class. I would choose to have my students create marketing examples like this video that I'll show you a few seconds of, but I also want to implement social media and monitor that closely, obviously, and helping my students develop digital skills.
I do to learn by connecting classroom materials to my career development activities.
I earn a living by supervised agricultural experience.
Why would they represent the different other communities other than mine?
Here at our high school, we have a unique classroom opportunity in agriculture education. Our ag teachers implement the three-circle model, which is made up of classroom instruction, supervised agriculture experience, and FFA. Let's take a look at what some of our students do here every day.
Through classroom instruction, I have had many opportunities to engage in experiential learning. In my horticulture class, I am able to apply the skills I have learned to create beautiful floral arrangements. In addition, in my applied horticulture class, my peers and I applied our arboriculture skills as we put our knowledge and skills to the test by climbing trees.
So it's just a very brief example in a few seconds of a recruitment video that I could show in my program. But if I could add circles to the three-circle model, one that would be very important to me, as you could see in my teaching philosophy, would be community. Not just within my classroom, but also outside of my classroom. While I'm student teaching in the spring, I'll be integrating community and helping connect my students to things outside of their classroom wall through a community-based unit of instruction in a silviculture and forest ecology unit in my forestry class, where my students will be assigned the task of creating an interactive and informative learning station for elementary school students on Earth Day, which is April 22nd. I'm really excited to see how my students utilize the currently existing raised beds and the 15-acre school farm that I have access to at my property center. Another circle that I would add if I had the ability would be the teacher, because someone needs to deliver the content in the circle that involves classroom and laboratory instruction. I want to show you a little bit about my teaching abilities using Rosenshine and FIRST qualities of an effective teacher. Hopefully the volume. knife down, that would be great. So once everyone has finished cutting the tops off of their strawberries, now make sure those things are important instructions. When I say smush, you're going to put those 3 strawberries in your Ziploc bag, seal it up tight, and then take about 1 minute to 2 minutes to smush those strawberries together in the bag. But be careful not to put a hole in your Ziploc bag or anything. Okay, so we're going to put the strawberries where?
In the bag.
In the bag. And then we're going to do what with the bag, Rachel? We're going to smash the bag. But what should we probably do first? Seal the bag, exactly. And then what will we do with the strawberries that are in the sealed bag, Matt?
Then we'll mush them up.
Then we'll mush them up. Okay. What questions are there about your first job, scientists? None? Okay, go ahead and smush. Guys, let's freeze for a second. Right, can you move up here 2, please? Okay. Oh, we talked a little bit about some other components and characteristics of meat. And like we talk fat content in meat, or when we're looking at a steak, what is that vocab word we talked about when you see the meat, or the fat in the meat? Marbling, right? And what's something that we know fat in meat or marbling meat gives people who cook it? Flavor. Control. You talk tightly again.
Yeah.
Okay, when I say smush, you will continue to smush the strawberries for another minute, but do not be so rough that you create a lot of bubbles. Why would we get bubbles in the bag? We put soap in there, right? Okay, so what are we avoiding? Bubbles. Okay, go ahead and smush. Great, that's okay. We'll be working together through this. Okay, so you took some time to highlight what types of things, Rachel? Okay, but big picture, what types of things were you highlighting?
Things they did good.
Things that did good, or things that did bad, right? So, let's take the notes that you wrote on your letter that I sent you, and take a few minutes to turn around to the parking lot over here on the wall, and I want you to write down 3 different things that you noticed from your letter, okay? So we're gonna park 3 different big picture things that you noticed about things that Mr. Shiki wrote to us about. Okay, how many things, Mike? 3. And where are we writing them at? Up where? In the parking lot. That's right. So there's color markers over here. Maybe you want to use one color for a positive and a different color for a negative. Thanks for watching. As you can see in my model program curriculum, agricultural mechanics was a component that I thought was very necessary to include. It's just as relevant now as it was in the past. And so I would definitely incorporate an agricultural mechanics facility, which I'll show you a model of in a few minutes. But there are 3 components which I feel very important if I'm integrating any form of lab in my classroom. Most importantly is safety. Do my students know how to operate equipment safely? Are they being safe around others? It's very important to me as well that my students are cultivating a workplace disposition in my lab facilities. I want to run my classroom as if it was a job site. So would you come late if I was your boss? Would you wear that if I was your boss? If I was your actual boss, I could fire you. However, I can't fire my students, but I can deny them of classroom privileges. And last but not least, one of the most important components for me in lab integration is that I want to offer my students with industry certifications so that they can become more competitive on the job market after they leave my classroom. Like I had stated, here's a sample layout of a agricultural mechanics facility. The red boxes on the top, just to go through quickly, are some welding stations. I have some workbenches, a large area for collaborative work in the center, as well as some other metalworking tools. If you want to see more of my plan, my lab integration, you can check out the binder up front and ask some questions about that. As well, the key is included in the binder.
Janae, feel free to pass that around if you'd like.
Sure. Obviously, like I stated, safety is very important to me in a shop. And so I have chosen to implement the ag mechanic courses that I'll teach while I'm student teaching, and in the future, a participation points system that comes in the form of a shop high five. So when my students walk in the door, they get 5 points a day for following these 5 things. Are you on time? Are you being wise with the time that you're outside of my classroom? Are you task-oriented, staying on task with the assignment I gave you? Are you reaching the goals that you set for yourself for this day or that week? Are you tactful? What that boils down to quite simply is, are you being safe? Do you have safety glasses on? Do you have a long shirt on if you're welding? Do you have closed-toed shoes? Or else is your hair pulled back? Number 4, are you being thoughtful? Are you respectful of yourself, those around you, the equipment, and me as your teacher. And last but not least, are you being tidy today? Did you clean up your space after you're done with it? Did you participate in class cleanup at the end of the day? I also implement classroom management outside of the agricultural mechanics facility. You can see, hopefully the podium's not blocking them too much, my 3 posters for procedures, expectations, and consequences. And Midwest High School, where I'll be soon teaching, their disciplinary policies on the bottom, and it correlates fairly closely to mine. Will be used on a situation basis. But I do believe that in order for you to fully understand, since you still have your student hats on, how things work in my classroom, that we should probably stand up and go through some motions for our classroom procedures. So if you can get up on your feet, make sure that you can see me, because I'm going to need you to follow along. All right. So the very first and most important thing in this first classroom is that we arrive on time. So go ahead and tap your watch because you came in on time. And then we're going to do our bell work. So go ahead and write out your bell work. Do that as soon as we walk in the door. We'll be an engaged, on-task participant in class. We'll complete the ticket out when I give it to you. And we'll always leave without questions. Thank you. Have a seat. Of my 3 posters that I brought along with me, my most important one to me is my expectations. I want my students to know that my classroom is a safe environment where they are encouraged to try new things, take risks, and make mistakes. I've said it many times before, I want them to respect themselves, others, the space that they're in, and me as their teacher. I want them to own their learning and be willing to create and dig deeper and ask questions, to accept responsibility if I give them a task or something needs accomplished that they do it themselves without being asked. I want them to work hard, to give 110% all the time. But if I had to choose one word to put on my poster, and only one at all, it would be integrity. Because I want my students to be held to a high standard that no matter what, whether no one's in the classroom or not, they're always doing what is right. So I think to answer my question, by now you understand that I'm a teacher who's passionately pursuing a bright future for agriculture. And you as my students, I want you all to develop into 21st century individuals so that you'll be able to communicate, collaborate, think critically, and create. Not just in my classroom, but in your other classes, and then outside as you leave this school and my classroom. I want these 4 skills to be able to help you become and perform more competitively on the job market, to be positive, productive citizens in society, and most importantly, that when you leave here, I can know confidently that you have the skills and knowledge to advocate positively for the agricultural industry. I think that does a pretty good job answering who I aspire to be as a teacher. So we'll move into objective 2. Let's examine experiential learning opportunities that I've engaged in to become a better teacher. So we're going to go on some teacher ag adventures. Get it? So we'll start at the place of Bowie. I'm from a dairy and broiler chicken farm in southeastern Pennsylvania in Lancaster County. And that was where I began to cultivate my passion for agriculture, and my involvement in 4-H and FFA helped me understand that there's a need for someone to pursue the future of agriculture, which brought me to Penn State to pursue this degree, where I've taken a lot of different coursework to get me to where I'm at today. On the left-hand side, you can see a variety of agricultural education classes that I've taken, and on the right-hand side, classes both in the College of Agricultural Sciences and out that have definitely molded me and influenced me. I think if I had to pick one course outside of agriculture education that was my favorite, would be Ag Business Management 308W, which is Strategic Management and Agribusiness. And I brought a sample assignment from that along, so feel free to take a look at that after class. I'll pass it on. Penn State has also given me an opportunity to enhance my major with minors in the area of agribusiness management and international agriculture. I've completed my teacher certifications in the praxis exam for fundamental subject knowledge and agriculture, and I'm planning to retake the general science in the spring. I am an accredited parliamentarian, a certified community instructor for the National Safe Tractor and Machinery Operation Program, and First Aid and CPR certified. Here at Penn State, I've also been given the opportunity to experience a lot of phenomenal professional development, whether that's attending the Pennsylvania Association of Agriculture Educators Summer Conference, being very blessed and fortunate to have attended the ACTE and NAAE National Convention in New Orleans, Louisiana, just last month. Those are some of the many excellent workshops that I was able to participate in and experience the importance of professional organizations, not just at a state level, but at a national level as well. I've attended the National FFA Convention in several capacities for several years, and have and will be attending the Global Learning and Agriculture Conference. Penn State as well has allowed me the opportunity to travel. And so I had my first opportunity to get out of the country with the Community Environment Development course and go to Honduras, where we looked at agribusiness at a micro level, specifically and its influence on communities. And I think one of the most impactful experiences for me there while we were at John Brown University was to wake up at 3 in the morning and go milk cows with some fellow college students from across the globe, with 2 of my peers who had never been on a farm before. So their first farm experience was on a university farm facility in a different country. So I got to teach them and compare a little bit from Honduras to Pennsylvania. And the other picture is a little bit of TCHEC Penn State on top of the world in Honduras. But I've been able to travel domestically as well through TCHEC Society's Domestic Study Way, which has given me an opportunity to really develop myself and my ability to work with diverse learners. In the top left-hand corner, you can see a picture from our trip to Arizona, where we spent some time on the Navajo Reservation, and I learned some very hands-on applicable ways to work with students of multicultural differences. In the upper right-hand corner, we are at the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, where we learned a lot about urban agricultural education programs and that difference from a prairie school to a more city school, if you will, and how to implement service learning in either one of those settings. And just this past May, we returned from Mississippi, where we did some financial literacy and SAE programming with students of a lower socioeconomic status than ourselves. Another great opportunity for me as I will most likely experience that in my classroom. So with those experiences at Penn State, I again have been able to develop myself so that I can role model it to all of you as my students: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Through communication, I've been encouraged, especially in the domestic study way, to utilize social media as a networking tool to connect with individuals from across the nation. I've been taught to collaborate at conferences like NAAE, where I was able to connect with agriculture educators who are passionate about the future, just like me, from across the nation. I've been taught to be creative and innovative in a university and a program that's very cutting edge, and starting new programs and developing us to be the best teachers we can be in the nation. And I've been taught to think critically in my assignments to reflect, but also then developing myself into a reflective practitioner after I complete teaching labs and go on experiences like this. So that brings us into the last objective of today, determining how prepared I am to maximize my student teaching experience. I am very honored and excited to say that I'll be student teaching at Midwest High School in Middleburg, Pennsylvania, with the mentorship of Mr. David Bittner and Mr. Greiger. There are about 285 students enrolled in that program, and their facilities include an agricultural mechanics lab, an agri-science classroom and lab facility, a greenhouse, and a newly acquired 15-acre school farm, which I'm excited to utilize in my horticulture and my forestry classes. According to the program evaluation, or Chapter 339 from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, I did had a short and sweet version of a program evaluation of Midwest. Here's a more in-depth version. I'll hand that out for you. Some strengths that I see in my Carpeting Center include things like their ability to align their program with academic standards, both science, English, and math, on the state level and a national level for agriculture as well. Their ability to integrate high-level courses and articulate them with Delaware Valley University, as well as their new facilities that allow their students to have access to updated resources. On the flip side, some areas of improvement, I'll twist the semi-school agreement a little bit to say that there's opportunity for growth and the ability to offer more agriculture courses through the Midwest School District Cyber School, as well as some carefully outlined safety plans on this newly acquired school facility as parents and community members will be working with students there, and there are some outdated infrastructure on that acreage. Here's my master calendar that I'll be utilizing during my student teaching time. For those of you who picked up a handout, you can see a monthly basis. The instructional team sees a weekly basis. I have chosen to utilize Google Calendar as that platform. And if you look closely, you can tell that I have the course name, the unit title, and the lesson number that I'll be teaching that day. Here are the units of instruction that I'll be teaching during my time at Midwest High School. I think I'm most excited to implement my agribusiness content that I've learned here at Penn State with an area that I'm not familiar with, equine science and my equine business management unit, and excited for the challenge of teaching agriculture biology, which is a Keystone course, so my students will need to pass a standardized test after that course. Because Midwest High School is a one-to-one program, I have chosen to digitally evidence my final presentation materials That's why I have very minimal binders with me today. So I'm going to take you on a virtual tour of my Google Drive, the area that I've chosen and the platform I've chosen to record my information.
I've chosen to digitally evidence my final presentation materials because Midwest High School is a one-to-one program, so this will make my process a little bit more efficient when I'm student teaching. When you enter into my folder for final presentation, you can see that I have 3 folders. Final presentation materials, which incorporates some of the things that I have hard copy here, just evidence digitally. I have a resources folder, which is just a wide variety of resources that I'll use as I continue planning throughout student teaching. And most importantly, my units of instruction folder. When you come in here, you can see all of the courses that I'm teaching while at Midwest High School. For the purpose of today, we'll use the Equine Science folder as an example. In the Equine Science course, I'm teaching 2 units, Equine Business Management and Horse Evaluation. So once we enter into the unit folder, we can see that I have a similar resources folder, but this is full of mostly supporting documents that I'll use as I continue planning. And I have 3 lesson plans. Followed by their supporting materials, which you can see below, as well as a summative assessment and any supporting materials for that, and a unit plan. My unit plans look a little bit like this. An example lesson plan would be this one here. And a summative assessment may look something like this, or include a rubric. The organizational system for my digital evidence works that the first thing that you will read is a code or an abbreviation for the course that I'm teaching, followed by the unit, the sequential number or order that that unit is taught in that course, then the lesson number that follows through the unit plan, and the last number you see is indicates whether or not it's a supporting document or the original lesson plan. A 0 or a 1 is a lesson plan or my edits to a lesson plan that's found. If there's no number after the L for lesson plan and there's an SA, that stands for the summative assessment.
So I'm excited to be a little innovative in my way that I'm delivering my content and stay a little bit more organized, a little bit more green as I'm student teaching. I was asked to share a little bit about how I feel that I have left the woodpile higher with my cohort, that final group of individuals up there. And through opportunities that have been provided for me to serve as the Penn State Teacher Ag Society president and be employed by the Center of Professional Personnel Development, I've been given opportunities to develop experiences, provide access to resources, answer questions, and utilize my skills that I believe are a God-given gift to serve my cohort. And I'll wrap it up today with something that I traditionally use in my reflective blog posts after I teach. Gems, things that I did good, ops, things that I do a little better, and targets for next time. So in terms of my abilities as a teacher, some gems that I see for myself, the first 2 are correlated to strength factors, a leadership test that provides me with 5 strengths. I've been told that I'm an activator by that exam, which I believe is very helpful for me in the classroom as I have an ability to engage and empower students. I also have been given the strength of belief, and knowing that, I think you can understand from my first objective that I have a lot of belief in my students and who they can be and who I want them to be. Not just belief in the content, but belief in the ability to develop different skills. I also think that I'm very strong in my ability to add variability to my units and lessons so that I can add lots of different learning activities, as well as I like to say I'm pretty organized because that might color really in my path. Some opportunities for me to improve upon delegation, I really struggle with the ability to say no. And also time management, looking forward as I hope to be able to utilize work-life balance in a healthy way. And to finish up with my targets as I enter into my student teaching and my future career, I'm going to bring back our 4 words: communicate, collaborate, think critically, and create. I hope that I can, again, continue to work being a role model for my students possessing these 21st century skills in communicating by really pushing myself to ask effective questions of my students. Are we asking hard questions, pertinent questions that challenge them to think and dig deeper? I want to collaborate because I want my students with me and understand the purpose behind every assignment, every set of directions, every task that I give to them, so that we can together, students and I, create a learning environment that meets all their needs. Along with that, I want to be creative in the ways that I'm designing my lessons, that I'm meeting all three modalities, kinesthetic, audio, and visual learners, but also stretching my students who may be a kinesthetic learner to think differently on how I can learn something in a visual way, or vice versa. And last but not least, I want to help my students think critically as I challenge them to think at a higher level, connecting that science, technology, engineering, and math to the agricultural applications in my classroom. That's all I have for you today. I'm so thankful that each of you filled this room and for your support in my final presentation. What questions are there?
We have entered the second phase of the final presentation, which are questions. We will accept questions from the teacher education panel, from those guests in the room, and from our online audience. We'll kind of rotate through those. And so we'll start with a question from the audience. Does anyone in the audience have a question you'd like to address to Janae about her preparation and your experience?
Yes. What is one piece of advice you've been given about teaching, why is that important, what does that mean to you?
I shared this with some of my Teacher X Society members, and I'll share it with the audience again today. Something that I was told at NAAE by a young teacher who has been in the field for 2 years. And they encouraged me in the context of my student teaching, but I think it translates outside of the student teaching internship into any job, and especially into the classroom, to not just thrive, or excuse me, not just survive, but to thrive. And to not just continue on and push through and get by, but to enjoy those moments that you're given the opportunity to influence these students and the time that they're in their class, or your class.
Thank you. This time, is there any questions from the online audience? And then to the teacher education panel.
I have a question. There it is. Ms. Hurd, describe for me the professional dispositions of an excellent educator.
In my opinion, a professional disposition of a teacher is someone who not only dresses and comes to the class or to different activities and events in a way that shows that they care about what they look like, but also is someone that goes outside of their appearance, their personal life. Are you responsible on social media? Are you responsible in the way that you have conversations with other people about different situations and different things that are going on? Do you hold yourself to the same level of integrity that you expect of your students? That's just a few things, but obviously the first thing that you'll see in one of those teachers is what are they wearing? Are you dressed differently than your kids when you pick you out from your students?
Ms. Hurd, as a very innovative, activator, futuristic young lady, how do you handle adversity whenever you get some pushback for maybe some of the really awesome ideas, but maybe are met with an old school mindset?
From students or parents or administrators or all of the above?
All of the
In the context of parents, I can understand how some innovation can be scary, especially if I'm in a community where parents have come through this program and now it's their child's turn. But I hope that I can set precedents in my classroom so that all parties, administration, students, and parents understand that I'm setting my students up to match what our industry is doing. So as most of us know, technology is revolutionizing the way that the agricultural industry functions. So if I'm utilizing technology, whether it's one-to-one in my classroom or social media or other services, I want to know that I'm matching and I'm trying to reflect the changes in the industry. If we're continuing to do it the way that it was done before, how are my students best prepared to enter the workforce and be competitive on that job market? Hopefully parents or administrators who want their students to get jobs. Hopefully students would want to get a job or enter college afterwards. So hopefully I'll be able to set context in that form.
There are questions from the audience.
Is there anything with regards to teaching that you're nervous about?
I am nervous about content knowledge in some areas, but I'm excited about the challenge in that. There are a lot of courses that I'm teaching that I'm not very familiar with, but I'm excited that I get to learn along with the students. And I'm a little bit nervous about the implementation of the one-to-one, as exciting as that is, making sure that I can help my students be responsible users of technology, and that we are not using it to teach, but using it to enhance our teaching.
Ms. Carter.
Assuming you are a teacher and also an FFA advisor and knowing your 4-H background and also considering time limitations, what positives did you gain from being a volunteer 4-H leader?
I think being a volunteer for Twitter allows for a unique opportunity for me to recruit for my program. That may be an underlying reason to do that. However, I get to interact with students at a very young age, influence them, inspire them to continue on in their project or area, whichever they're choosing in 4-H, and hopefully them being able to come to my FFA program, pursue content in the classroom that they can apply to their 4-H projects, and then potentially use that as a career pathway once they leave my classroom.
Any online questions? You just flag me down, let's see what we do. I have a question, Ms. Hurd. Please listen carefully and think deeply. Please provide an example of a learning activity that incorporates or transcends all three components of school-based agricultural education.
In my greenhouse management unit, in my horticulture class, my students will be doing a lot of committee work in that class, developing plans to manage a business outside of the class of greenhouse, which are going to learn skills on how to properly grow plants in that classroom, connecting business knowledge, then to sell those plants for our FFA plant sale. And hopefully give an opportunity for students who lack the ability to have a traditional SAE project at home, will be able to utilize that as a placement SAE, or as well as an entrepreneurship SAE, growing some of those plants on their own. But through the opportunity to be a greenhouse foreman or a cashier, if you will, during the plant sale, they'll have the opportunity to experience SAE through a placement platform.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the audience? Are there any further questions from the teacher education panel? Let's show our appreciation for this celebration of knowledge. We appreciate you joining us. We do have presentations for today, tomorrow, and early Wednesday. We would at this time invite you to enjoy the refreshments in Ferguson 214, and we ask that we clean the room or clear the room so that we can complete the evaluation process with Ms. Hurd.
Thank you so much for coming.